What do you think our souls owe to ancient myths?
Well, the ancient myths were designed to put the mind, the mental system, into accord with this body system, with this inheritance
A harmony?
of the body, to harmonize. The mind can ramble off in strange ways and want things that the body does not want. And the myths and rites were a means to put the mind in accord with the body and the way of life in accord with the way that nature dictates.
So in a way, these old stories live in us.
They do indeed. And
That's good.
stages of a human development are the same today as they were in the ancient times. And the problem of a child brought up in a world of discipline, of obedience, and of his dependency on others has to be transcended when one comes to maturity, so that you are living now not in dependency, but with self-responsible authority. And the problem of the transition from childhood to maturity, and then from maturity and full capacity to losing those powers and acquiescing in the natural course of, you might say, the autumn time of life and the passage away. Myths are there to help us go with it, accept nature's way and not hold to something else.
The stories are sort of, to me, like messages in a bottle from shores someone else has visited first.
Yes, and you're visiting those shores now.
And these myths tell me how others have made the passage and how I can make the passage.
And also what the beauties are of the way. I feel this now, moving into my own last years, you know. The myths help me to go with it.
What kind of myth? Give me a one that has actually helped you.
Well, the tradition in India, for instance, of actually changing your whole way of dress, even changing your name as you pass from one stage to another. When I retired from teaching, I knew that I had to create a new life, a new way of life, and I changed my manner of thinking about my life, just in terms of that notion of moving out of the sphere of achievement into the sphere of enjoyment and appreciation, and relaxing into the wonder of it all.
And then there is that final passage through the dark gate.
Well, that's no problem at all. The problem in middle life, when the body has reached its climax of power and begins to lose it, is to identify yourself, not with the body which is falling away, but with the consciousness of which it is a vehicle. And when you can do that, and this is something I learned from my myths, what am I? Am I the bulb that carries the light, or am I the light of which the bulb is a vehicle?
That's good.
And this body is a vehicle of consciousness. And if you can identify with the consciousness, you can watch this thing go like an old car. There goes the fender, there goes this. But it's expectable, you know? And then gradually, the whole thing drops off, and consciousness rejoins consciousness. I mean, it's no longer in this particular environment.
And the myths, the stories have brought this consciousness.
Well, I live with these myths, and they tell me to do this all the time. And this is the problem, which can be then metaphorically understood as identifying with the Christ in you. And the Christ in you doesn't die. The Christ in you survives death and resurrects. Or it can be with Shiva. Shiva Hung, I am Shiva. And this is the great meditation of the yogis in the Himalayas. And one doesn't have even to have a metaphorical image like that if one has a mind that's willing to just relax and identify itself with that which moves it.
Damn. Let's go with the flow. That's what he's saying, man.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, hey?
Wow.
he touches on a whole bunch of stuff, but yeah, he's a cool cat, man. I really love Joseph Campbell. I've read lots of his books, and The Power of Myth, which is like that video came from like a longer series of interviews he did with Bill Moyer. Like, man, like how people read the Bible, like, Christians are like, I read the Bible every year. I try to watch that series every year because it's like, it is a Bible in and of itself, man.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful, man. And that was like 4 minutes and 30 seconds. He pretty much explained it all.
Yeah, it seemed to hit on all the like really major points, right? Like transitions in life, like harmonizing mind and body, which I think we were talking about last time, that whole mind, body, spirit balance that you and I really strive to achieve in our lives. And yeah, he hit on a whole bunch of stuff. So great idea. Starting us off with that, man.
Mm-hmm. They're all just different myths and metaphors for the same idea of not identifying, like you said, with the bulb, but identifying with the light that is a vehicle. Sorry, no, the bulb is the vehicle. We don't identify with the vehicle. We identify just simply with the process, the flow of the light passing through.
Yeah.
That's kind of what our consciousness is.
Yeah, well, and it's like identifying with the thing that does the identifying. You know what I mean? Like the thing that identifies itself with the job, the name, the body, whatever. Mm-hmm. That's what you got to identify with. But that thing doesn't really have it's behind you all the time. It's never in front of you. It's not something you can conceive of because it's the thing doing the conceiving. It's like, you can't see it because it's the recipient of sight. Like it's the thing that is experiencing seeing right now. So it gets kind of like hard to intellectualize it because it's beyond the intellect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is no intellectualization of the self. Damn.
Yeah. Well, and every time we do it, it's a false version of that, or it's a model, right? Which models are useful. Again, like that's what these myths are, according to Campbell, is they're all models that teach us about various things, including this identity with consciousness instead of with the forms, right? Mm-hmm. But it also teaches you like the cycles of life, how to transition from one period to another, the archetypes that are within you and that you'll meet in every person that you know. Like all the different personality traits you can look at them like astrologically, you can look at them archetypically, like through the Jungian Campbell archetypes, the hero, the trickster, the sage, the wise old man who teaches the young hero, all that stuff. Those are all archetypes from within ourselves. We all have those qualities within ourselves. And so the myths take these characters and externalize them so that we can learn about ourselves and the different energies.
Where do you think they come from? Do you think that it was like these stories and these archetypes were just present at one point in time?
I don't think it's like it's that clean. Like I think, it's not like the chicken or the egg, right? Like I think there's probably a little thing that happens here that feeds this other thing and then like, for example, the zodiac, like where did that come from? Well, we were no longer tree climbing apes. We had our hands to ourselves. We were looking at the sky for the first time, and we spent probably generations staring at that same night sky because it was like a clock for us, right? We could predict the seasons and stuff. But the way that we remember things as humans is through storytelling. So instead of remembering like when the sun passes through this weird symbol in the sky, it's like, no, that's a bull. Right. And when the sun passes through the bull, you know where you are in the year. And so it becomes this like story of all these figures chasing the sun or the sun moving through the houses or whatever. That's how we remember stuff. So I think that's part of just the way that our brains work. Like we're storytelling creatures by nature, and we have been from the get-go. So, I think that's part of it, but there's probably a bunch of different things. Psychedelics plays into it. I think in our evolution, like there's a bunch of factors that go into it, but at the end of the day, it's just ideas for us to work with, really, that help us if we know how to read them and how to interpret them, really.
Yeah, you have to know how to interpret it.
That's why Campbell was so good, because he spent his whole life reading these things and he saw the same story or the same pattern in every story, almost like, the same cycle. So really interesting guy.
Yeah, because then if you interpret the stories and the myths a little bit better, you can interpret your own being a little bit better.
Yeah, and you can be guided through life in certain ways. Like it's so crazy how often I will talk to people, and oftentimes people will come to me with their issues or whatever, and I like being a support for people. So, but there's so many times where people are going through these things, and I'm like, you're on the threshold of adventure. Like that's pure Campbell, right? Like I learned that from him, but you know the signs. You know the signs. It's like you're at this crossroads. And on this side is the safe path, the world that you're familiar with. And on this side is mystery, danger, transformation, treasure, right? All kinds of cool stuff. But people, when they're on that threshold, it's scary because it's like you're leaving the world that you know behind.
Yeah.
But that's a motif, if you think about it, in all the great stories that you've probably ever read, all the movies that you've watched, like that's like Frodo leaving the Shire, right? Right before he's going on his big adventure. Yeah, 100%. But that happens in your life all the time. There's all these moments in your life, I'm sure, if you look back where you're like, holy shit, that was pivotal. That was the threshold of adventure. And after that, nothing was the same again, right?
Yep. You had to throw the ring in Mount Doom.
Exactly. And then he gets back home eventually, which is how the cycle always ends, right? But when he gets back home, he's no longer the same Frodo. He's completely transformed from these adventures. So it's like that's the next challenge for the hero is how do you reintegrate into your old world, your old life, now that you've gone through all of these trials and tribulations and, discovered all these crazy things.
Yeah, that's the psychedelic motif. It's the whole idea behind the psychedelic experience. It's a rebirth experience.
That's right. Yeah, and then you have to come back to the world of sobriety with whatever, bring back whatever you found there, whatever happened to you. You have to reintegrate it into your daily. So yeah, it's metaphorical, but it's also literal. Like there are times where it's like I have a choice to leave my job and take on this riskier thing, but this riskier thing is my passion. So it's like, do I stick with what's safe? Do I take the plunge? Like sometimes it's literal. Sometimes it's like you literally went inside yourself and came out a new person from a psychedelic experience or a mystical experience or whatever. And then it's like, well, grappling with that. Now that becomes the new adventure. How do I fucking live in this world with one foot in here and one foot in there? Like all these different challenges present themselves.
Yeah. That's pretty wild, man. It's about stepping out of your comfort zone. It's just that idea of it's simple, man. Just step out of your comfort zone here and there. Get to these mini rebirths here and there.
That's
and
right.
What you think your personality is, and that leads to an actual rebirth of what you are. It doesn't happen overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day. I think you can come to that realization from a psychedelic experience or any kind of meditation experience. Something that happens in your life, whatever that is the catalyst for change. You can come to that realization, but the actual change from that realization takes time and a lot of integration. I think that's what the important part of psychedelics and how we use them is being able to go into these mystical experiences of myth and folklore and then be able to translate the messages for your own being so that you can ultimately live a better life.
Yep.
That's the goal.
Yeah. Live a better life. And like Campbell says, get comfortable with the fact that eventually it's going to end and transform it to something different.
It's funny because I think that idea is hard to grapple, obviously, but it actually is when you do grapple it, it's the most peaceful thing that could ever happen to your being when you truly do confront your own demise. It's a ironic idea because we're so afraid, but wouldn't you really, take in that this isn't forever and the true temporary nature of the current moment? It's a powerful vehicle for changing your whole entire being, your whole entire perspective, your mindset on what this life is. And that is essentially, that's the rebirth experience,
Yeah.
They all talk
absolutely.
about.
Yeah. It was that's an idea I was exposed to as a teenager. And I thought it was so stupid. I dismissed it out of hand, this whole meditating on your own death, your own mortality, or, memento mori, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, for me, it gives me almost like a new lease on life because it's like, oh, but I'm not dead now. Right.
Exactly.
Here I am, right? Could be any time, but not right now, obviously, because I'm right here contemplating it. So time to get my ass in gear and make sure that I don't leave any regrets on the table. I don't want to be on my deathbed thinking I should have been a better father, should have been a better husband, should have been a better friend. Now's the time to make sure that doesn't happen because I'm alive now. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, it's freeing in a lot of ways.
It gets you more into the now, literally. Be here now.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it enables me at least to be able to say, all right, this whatever the moment is isn't forever, good or bad, positive or negative, whatever your outlook on it is. Whatever it is, it's not forever. So, like you said, I'm here now. I'm gonna take it in.
Make the best of it.
Yeah, you have to, man. It's all perspective in life. That's what I've been contemplating recently. Is it's all mindset. This entire show that's going on the internet and you know the drama of your own life. It's really just a test for you to come to the consciousness of it's all grace. Coming to the consciousness that it's all going according to plan. And like Joseph Campbell said, you just kind of going with the flow. You know, he kind of said something like that, right? It was like you just kind of sink into the flow.
Yeah.
And you make your life a dance, you know? I think he's on to something.
No doubt.
That's the vibe, man. That's the flow. It's the eternal flow throughout time, you know? You can always tap in. It's always there. And it is grace, man. It is it's liberation from the shackles of Maya, some people would say, you know, the things, the fetters of Maya, the things that keep us just chained into thinking this is what we are. And this is the story. I'm suffering. I'm the victim. Woe is me. When really it's the opposite, man. Once you take a different perspective, you become the hero. You become the main character in this journey. And yeah, it's awesome. It's like you don't go back. You don't go back. I mean, you do. I think it's not, I'm not 100% on that wavelength, but I know that you can attune to the force. You know, you can attune to the vibe and always tap in.
That's right.
With nature or yourself. It's a powerful thing to be able to do that for yourself. You know, it's like strength.
I agree. Yeah, you can always
strength.
slip into old patterns for sure, but because you've basically once you see the light, you can always turn back to it, right? You might lose your way and be like, you know, with your back turned, but at any moment you're like, oh right, yes, okay, and then you go back to it. And so yeah, that's what you mean, right? I think it's not that you become it perfectly enlightened and you're always above it. You go back into you get lost in the sauce, as you like to say. It happens, but you always know your way out. And for me, especially recently, even when I find myself like, you know, getting lost in the sauce, getting lost in old patterns, I find that there's always a part of me that's like standing aside, watching me do it and going like, putting a hand on my shoulder and being like, there, you loser. Like, it's okay. Like, just shut up. Stop being a whiner. It's okay. Yeah. You know, there's always a part of me that's detached from it. So for me, that's like, no, I'd be happy if that was it. Like if that was the best I could hope for. It is so much better than my old way of operating, where I would just get fully lost in the sauce, you know, where I had no choice. There was no way to pull out of it. And it would last longer, right? When you're completely lost in it, like a fight with your spouse can last weeks. And now it's like a 3-second bit of like, followed by a, oh, right, this is stupid.
Oh,
you know?
Right. That exactly. That's the reaction. It's like, oh, I forgot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it might be longer than 3 seconds. I shouldn't falsify it too much. But like, even if it's like I spend an hour telling myself she doesn't appreciate what I do and all the things that I do for this family, and then after an hour, I'm like, are you done now? Okay. Can we go back to normal? All right, sweet. Yeah. But you're right. You hit on something important there. The stories we tell ourselves and that we believe in wholeheartedly.
Do you think that other layer of your consciousness is like this eternal witness that you can just tap into no matter the situation? And that's kind of the, I guess, goal. If there is a goal to this whole thing, is to be able to tap into that eternal witness. And then from there, you're good.
Yeah, I don't know there's so many different ways. I get confused when I start really trying to model it too much. Like I like to think of the analogy of like the center. So then I'm like, okay, well, the center of what? Like the psyche. Okay. So the farther out from the center you move, the more you're identifying or dealing with external forms. The closer you are to the center, the closer you are to that source of light, of awareness, which is your true being, right? When you're in the perfect center, like shit can be happening all around you, inside you, like anger can be floating around. But so that's the way I liken it, is like, there's a part of me that's rooted to that center now. so that even when there's anger and resentment and all these crazy things floating around, that part of me is like in the eye of the storm, and it's not affected by the emotions and the thoughts. It's watching. A lot of me might be involved in the anger and then the drama, but there's always that part of me that's like, it's almost like an anchor to that center place where it's not affected by that shit. And, you know, I think that when we talk about the eternal witness, that's, to me, that's the center. Like, that's just another way of looking at it, right? If you are that witness, all that anger and stuff can be happening around you, but you're not affected by it. You're like the lotus in the water, but never wet. You know what I'm saying? So, same idea though. I mean, these are all just, again, different models, right? Different ways of looking at it.
Exactly, man. The same, I mean, different ideas on the same
experience, reality
thing. No word.
More words, right? Exactly. Yeah. Even just trying to say that is more linguistic, acrobatics. So,
well, how did you develop this center, would you say? Where did you come to find the center?
It's finding it for sure, because everybody's got it. That's the key, right? Fuck, man. You know what? I think it started. I started to find it and go back to it more regularly when I cleared my shit out. Because if you're on the outskirt of that circle, like if you're on the outer periphery of that circle that I was talking about, the psyche, and it's crowded in there, you got all kinds of beliefs and ideas. And the deeper you go, the more those beliefs become hard to identify. They become like assumptions or expectations that you don't consciously state to yourself. You don't go around thinking to yourself, everything today is going to go exactly the way I want it to, as planned. You don't say that. But if you go deep enough, you will see that that expectation is there, because when things don't go your way, what happens? You get angry. You start telling this little poor me story or whatever. So for me, it was like this initial experience I had in 2013. It like cleared me out of a lot of that shit instantly. I was so blessed. It was, I don't know what it was. Grace, as you say.
That was at work, right?
Yeah, man. It was like in a flash, like of a few minutes, plus like, processing it after the fact, a bunch of those ideas, a bunch of those beliefs were gone. They were just gone. I still have a bunch, but like take half of the stuff in your house and get rid of it. You got a lot more space now to see and to maneuver, and it just clears you out. Right. And so at that point, I was actually able to see myself a bit more clearly, because there was a bunch of crap that was no longer there. Oh. So it was pure luck, man, pure, or whatever, grace, blessing, whatever. But then that doesn't mean that you're going to find the center necessarily either. Right. You can easily just go back to the old way and you're just a bit happier or whatever. So it's, since then it's been 8 years of me kind of circling the center and finding it sometimes and learning sort of like how to stay there. And yeah, it's an imperfect process, but it's always ongoing. And like you said, it's finding your way back there that's important, and trying to stay tethered to it as much as possible, so that even if you have to wander out into the Maya and the dense forest of material illusions, and get caught up in work and all that stuff, you're still, it's like a cookie or a breadcrumb trail or whatever. You can follow it back to the center anytime, right? It's like emergency, go back to the center quick. Yeah. And there's different ways, right? Your breath can take you there. That's one of the ways that I can get back to the center very quickly.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of methods for going in, but you have to kind of discover them through experience yourself.
Yeah, if you can take control of your breath, you definitely take control of how centered you are.
Brings everything down, right?
Yeah, if you slow your breath down, all you got to do is just consciously slow your breath down, and that's how you consciously slow your processing in your mind down. And it works, man. You ever try the box breathing, which is like, it's like 4 seconds. I mean, people like to visualize a square. So it's like 4 seconds inhale, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds exhale, 4 seconds hold. Or you can do 5 seconds or 6 seconds, but whatever it is, it's just like very, very controlled inhales and exhales. And if you do that for like 20-30 seconds, you'll notice a difference 100%. But just being able to consciously do that's finding the center and then going after the center. You have to be able to know the techniques. But if you know the techniques to be able to align yourself they're there, man, and they're there to actually do that, to actually
Mhm.
find the center. People have been doing this for years. We've been disconnected from methods to be able to uh, center ourselves.
Yeah.
But they're there, they're out there, man. And like you said, yeah, the breath, 100%. I don't know anything more powerful than just being able to just go anywhere, because we're always breathing. So
Yeah.
no matter what, you can always center yourself as long as you're breathing. There's always that sense of control that we
Yeah.
have, and it's just about becoming aware. As long
Yeah.
as you can become aware of the breath, or whatever your thing is to align you. Some people use, like, I don't know, like certain sensations in their body,
Yeah.
or like
Rosaries. There's
yeah, an
all kinds of
object,
stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
whatever it is.
Beads, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever it
Anything to
is.
fix your attention, right?
Yeah. You just have to be able to fix your attention on one thing, and that's how you fix your attention on the eternal witness, or you become the eternal witness. That is fixing your attention.
Yeah.
Beautiful thing.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's interesting that the breath is so, it's like the most important thing, right? Without air, you're not gonna need water or food. If you can't breathe, you're dead.
Yeah.
But it's like the thing that we do most unconsciously. And when you
Right.
like, I don't know, like when I first started doing this stuff, I would catch myself like either like breathing really fast or holding my breath. And I
Mhm.
never noticed that. And it's like, holy crap, like how long have I been holding my breath for? It feels like I've been holding it, and then all of a sudden you're like, like you've been underwater for a while. But yeah, it's this thing that is like it's our lifeline, and we don't really pay attention to it. And the moment you become mindful of your breath, it just quiets everything down right away.
Yeah. It's
And
the simplest, hardest thing.
Yeah, it is absolutely. Yeah.
Crazy.
If you can just be completely mindful of your breath all day long, I think that's what enlightened people are, because it's like there's no thinking involved. If you're focused on your breath, the mind doesn't have enough energy to get going and start telling its story. And that's kind of where that silence comes from, right? Because especially like with box breathing, you're having to concentrate so much on like making sure your breaths are even, you're holding it for the right amount of time. And that concentration takes all the energy away from your mind. It can't tell its story anymore. It's just,
Exactly.
it becomes completely quiet. And then you can find that peace in that center, in that silence, right?
We can always do that. We can always come back to the breath, man. Try it out, man. Like anybody listening, just try out slowing down your breath. Look up box breathing. Look up anything that has to do with slowing down your breath. Any kind of guided meditation to quell anxiety, and you'll notice a difference, man. All you got to do is breathe. We just got to breathe a little slower.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Anything that draws your attention into your sensations, your body away, again, it just takes energy from the mind, and the mind,
damn monkey mind.
Yeah, it becomes a little bit more docile and easy to work with because you're starving it a bit, right? It doesn't always have energy. It's not always running the show. You're interrupting it, and the more you can interrupt it, the better, because that's breaking a pattern.
Right. What do you do for meditation techniques?
Honestly, just sit and breathe, right? I tried, the main thing for me is, so a couple things. Sometimes I'll do box breathing. Sometimes I'll do, I'll just count like 1 in, 2 out. I'll count to 10 and then start at 0 again. And I'll do that probably 5 times. And then I stop counting and I just focus on my breathing, because by then the mind, again, because you've been focusing on counting your breaths and breathing evenly, your mind doesn't have any energy. So it's quiet throughout that whole time, I find. So then when I get to around the 5th one, I stop counting, because by now the mind is just silent, and it'll stay that way because I've already shut it up, right? So then I just focus on my breathing.
Isn't that pretty cool to be able to do?
Yeah.
We can all do it. I believe we can.
You can trick your mind into doing this too, because the mind is like one trick that I've found works really well for people, and it worked for me, is ask yourself, what am I going to think next?
What is my next thought?
And see how long it takes for something to happen. You'll have mental, and I did this with a friend of mine, and it was the first time she'd ever had mental silence that she was aware of. She was like, I didn't have thoughts for like 10 seconds. I'm like, yeah, pretty cool, right? So it works, because it's like, as soon as you pose that question to the mind's waiting. And sometimes it takes a long ass time for things to come back. So, but
unanswerable question.
Kind of, yeah. It's a paradox. You like fool the mind into being quiet for a minute. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I don't know what is coming next.
That's awesome,
But
dude.
yeah, there's all kinds of different tricks like that, right? And so that's the other thing. Meditation, focusing on bodily sensations, can really quiet the mind. But I have had success using the mind against itself.
Mm,
And fueling the mind so that it can basically dismantle some of its own constructs.
mm.
Like I think in Vedic philosophy, you know, they talk about discernment, the sword of discernment. Actually, that's what I use. That's what this owl is holding in its claws. Hard to see in the video, but you know,
Did you
they
draw
talk
that?
about yeah. They talk about cutting through illusion with the sword of discernment, right? Discernment being like the ability to see through bullshit, the ability to see through through to the essence of things, right?
Yeah.
It's not that the surface level is an illusion necessarily. It's just that it's the surface, and it's not necessarily the true essence of the thing. It rarely is. So yeah, like through Socratic inquiry, asking a lot of questions, asking myself a lot of questions about things, like when I react a certain way, going, why are you reacting that way? And then having a conversation with myself, which is what crazy people do. I know.
We all do it.
Yeah, but doing it consciously is powerful. Right? We do it
To
unconsciously.
consciously talk to yourself.
Yes, versus like having, you know, sometimes you see somebody like my daughter's hilarious for this. I'll walk in and she's like, doesn't know that I'm there. And she's just having a full blown conversation with herself. And it's like, you know, she's like 11 or whatever. Right. But, you know, we all do it. You're right. But when you do it consciously, you can have great effects because you can call yourself out. You can, you know, if you're like, well, this person did this to me, that's why I'm mad. And it's like, how's that helping?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can kind of talk yourself down in a way. It's really strange, but I think it's because we have those two hemispheres, you know, we can really like, we are already divided in a way. Our brains are. So, you know, you can kind of have those types of conversations with yourself because there's more than one you in there, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah, right. That is pretty powerful. Sometimes I'm talking to myself and then I say we rather than I. I'm like, wait, why am I saying
Being
we?
myself.
Yeah, me, myself, and I.
Yeah. Well, to think about it, myself implies that there's something to which the self belongs.
Myself.
Exactly. Yeah. To whom does this self belong?
Me.
Yeah.
It belongs
So there's
to me.
you and yourself. So it is we. You're right.
Oh, that's so funny, dude.
Yeah. And again, to me, it's like, it's all one, you know, that we've all, not all, but you and I for sure have experienced the unity of being multiple times, I'm sure, in our lives. And so we know that the underlying reality is a single whole, but it's really helpful to be able to play around with the idea that there's two of you in there, because now you can talk yourself down and you can call yourself out on your own bullshit. So it's not that there actually are two of you in there. It's just a helpful way of looking at it sometimes.
It's a helpful story of ourselves.
There you go. Right?
It's the non-dualistic, dualistic viewpoint of the
There
self.
you go. Yeah. Exactly. It's holding both together, right? And using both, because they all have their place.
Damn.
Oh,
That's
man.
powerful, man.
Yeah, I guess so. If you can experience it, you know, because we're talking about it, but until you experience it for yourself, it might sound like craziness. It might sound
sounds like
you know what I
craziness.
mean? Yeah. It's like, I'll talk to myself. I'm not crazy. I'm not going to do that. Okay, cool. Like suit yourself, you know, but yeah, it's, you need to be a little bit, like humble in a sense, because you have to be open to the possibility that, there is another you in there, maybe multiple yous. They don't all want the same things, you know?
More than just one. Could be different. I kind of just like look at like different parts of our brain, different ways that we interpret the world, our different selves. I guess there's sometimes I find myself like angry. That could be another self, angry Gary. And then there's happy Gary. And then there's chill Gary. Those are just all different stories that we tell.
I can't picture you angry, bro. I can't see you.
I don't really get angry, to be honest with you, man.
No, I was going to say, I don't think that happens often for you.
Only I get angry at like inanimate objects. I don't get angry at people. You know what I mean? I mean, sometimes like if somebody cut me off in traffic or something, I'd probably be angry for like 5 seconds. But
right.
But like usually like it's if I stub my toe or just something doesn't screw
Damn
in
table.
right. Yeah, I get mad at these things. Like, why is it not going according to plan? Or like, why did that happen? Or I
Yeah.
hit my head or something. That's usually when I get mad, but it's not
Interesting.
worth it. Like I almost always can understand people's position. So I'm just like it's like with a sense of understanding, it calls away my anger toward
Yeah.
other people because I just know that I don't know. I just know that nobody, I mean, maybe some people, maybe like psychopaths and sociopaths, but I
Yeah.
don't think anybody's doing anything out of ill intent. And it's just like a source of either just being lost or just being ignorant. I don't think there's any kind of like evil truly in human beings.
Yeah.
I think that human beings can still commit evil acts, though. Like I said, we can still be lost, very, very lost in the sauce. But ultimately, our purest form is of a like a kid. You know, it's just like an innocent being that I try to see in people, and then because of that, I try to forgive them for their actions. You know,
Yeah.
so because of that, it actually makes me less angry. It makes me happier. You know,
Yeah.
it makes me be able to just be like go with the flow, like we talked about. Be able to just be like, oh, you know, they're just a little ignorant. They're just a little lost, and use that as a lesson. You know, I try not to get angry at people, man. But like I said, if you cut me off in traffic, you might get the finger. You know what I'm saying? Real quick, just for like 5 seconds.
Yeah. A little flash in the
And
pan.
I'm like, all right, chill out, bro.
Yeah, it's not worth it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to my friend Cressy yesterday, and my until yesterday, my view was that anger has no benefit whatsoever.
Yeah. I was talking about that with somebody the other day too. That's
yeah.
funny.
And I've had this conversation many times over the years, and people usually have counter arguments like, well, anger can be a really good motivator to like make you do stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but it's never the best motivator. Like anger, like, so I use the example of like police brutality towards like visible minorities in the US, right? I can look at that and I can get angry, and I can be angry at the system, angry at the cops, and that can motivate me to become an activist. Absolutely. Or I can look at the people who are being victimized, feel love and compassion for them, and a love for justice and wanting to help people. And then that can motivate me to be an activist. I think that's much better motivation than being angry at cops, angry at, whatever. Anger just never leads to optimized, outcomes for anybody involved. The person who's angry, the person who's the recipient of it, whatever. But my friend told me something yesterday that changed my mind. I actually saw there, basically, anger is good if it's coming from a place of depression. So if you're basically, depression is like the worst. And so if you're a depressed person and you feel anger in that moment, that's actually a step up, because now it's like, oh, there's a sign of life in you. It's like something's got you roused. Something's got you living again. So in that one finite situation, in that one very specific setting, it actually is good. And I didn't know that until yesterday. So fun fact, she changed my opinion, because until that moment, I was like, there is no value in anger ever, period. And I should have known that was wrong, because there's no absolutes in this world. There's always exceptions to every rule. But yeah, anyway, so I just thought I'd share that with you, because it was like, wow, you just learned me something like profound, because yeah, I was set in my ways there. Anger was a no-no in all cases until yesterday.
Makes sense. It's better to feel something than nothing at all.
Yeah. And then she asked me, she was like, have you ever been depressed, Ollie? Because like she was describing it. And I was like, I don't think I have. And then I was thinking about it after that exchange. And I said, you know why? Because I had anger my whole life to keep me warm. So I never got depressed. And so it makes sense. Again, it was like, instead of getting depressed, I went to anger, right? Instead of being depressed at like, oh, I don't have any friends or I'm not popular, I would be like, look at those fucking cool kids thinking they're so fucking cool, losers, and that's what kept me out of being depressed, I guess, for all those years. So yeah.
Interesting perspective.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, like,
other than that use,
said,
I guess there's no use for anger though.
No, and I think again, like it's the very bottom of the emotional hierarchy. Yeah, it's like it's only one. The only thing lower than that is depression. So yeah, I still don't think like it's a good motivator. I had one person tell me, "Well, if you're getting into a fight, anger is a good thing," and I'm like, dude, I boxed for for seven, like
It's actually
for
not, dude.
10 years. No, you don't want to be angry in a
Yeah.
fight, dude. You want to be completely calm and clear, because then you're going to see openings. You're going to stick to your game plan. When you get mad,
Yeah.
it all goes out the window and you're a fucking wreck.
Yeah. Think
So-
about when you watch a UFC fighter. Like the calmest one is
Yeah.
usually the one that's in control. You don't see the guy that's just like trying to throw haymakers all day winning the fight. Usually you have to be calculated. So yeah, even in how we evolved anger, which was like a self-defense mechanism kind of in terms of fighting and hunting and stuff like that. Even in that sense, it's not even beneficial. Like, even though that's how we developed it, because it comes from that violent aspect that we have as apes, right? It's just like that fighting spirit. Even when you're fighting, it's not useful. It's better to just be calm, cool, and collected.
Totally. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I thought I'd heard every argument for anger, and I thought I had routinely defeated it. But this one new one is like, well, no, you're right. That's, if you're depressed. So next time I have a friend who's depressed, I'm going to try to piss him off.
That's funny.
Trigger him as much as I can. You're feeling better, I see.
Right? That might be a way to do it. Like,
Yeah. Well,
take
the
a
first
hit at
step out of
somebody's
depression.
ego.
Yeah, exactly.
don't know.
Poor little you. Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm not a
Depression-
psychologist, obviously.
Yeah, it's a real thing. There's ways out of it, though. That's what I like to try to keep in my mind. Like, for anybody, I really believe that you can get out of depression. We have the tools. We have the ability. Just be receptive to change. That's it. Just be open to change and changing your viewpoint of the woe is me victim mentality. Because life is all perspective, man. It's all mindset. And I'm not saying that depression isn't a real thing. I'm not saying that people suffer from it every day. But we have hope. We have a way to liberation, man. A way to actually get yourself out of that mindset of depression. That perspective of this sucks. I'm suffering. I mean, I've been there. I felt that. I know how it feels. It sucks. And it feels like you're in like a bottomless pit of your own lack of self-worth, man. It's like you're your own worst enemy when you're there. But the realization that you can come to, that we can all come to, is that no, you're your own best friend. When you can become your own best friend no matter what, that's your way out. That's the mindset out of this depressive rut that we've been conditioned into, this depressive like mindset and paradigm, and you're not good enough idea from our culture. It's not natural, man. Like, our natural way is feeling bliss, and if you can tap into that, you don't always have to be at that all the time, but you can tap into that vibe. You can align yourself to become centered with that in your own being. You can. We all have the capability to do so. It's a beautiful thing to be able to say that there is hope, man. There is hope for everybody, man. Seriously.
I agree, man. I think the only thing I'm not sure about with depression is I think there are certain cases where there's a physiological brain, like maybe brain trauma. It's physiological. And so you may need to, you may need medical intervention for sure. But I think of the vast majority of cases that we call depression these days, I think they're not that. And again, I could be completely wrong speaking on my ass, but it seems like the people that I know that I encounter that are quote unquote depressed, it's not like a chemical imbalance that's inherent to some problem with their brain. It's something wrong with the story they're telling themselves, as you said. But here's my
story could be this. Sorry, you're gonna just say this real quick?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Save your point, though. Save your point.
Yeah.
I think even the story could be associated with that chemical imbalance in your brain, but we can balance the chemicals. It might be through medicinal, going through pharmaceuticals or even psychedelics, whatever it is. You can balance these chemicals yourself. And we have the tools that are necessary to do that, whatever it is. I think we're all, unless it's physiological, like you said, you have some kind of like mental, birth effect, or, you got a car accident or something, whatever. I think most people, a good percentage are able to see the light and work our way.
Yeah. Well, no, and you included pharmaceuticals in there. That's all I was trying to say is like for everybody, for everybody that can pull him or herself out of a depressive state through meditation, yoga, supplements, or positive thinking. There are some people who need some kind of medical intervention. I think perhaps, I don't know. It seems likely to me that there's some people that no matter how much meditation they do, there's something wrong with the actual organ itself. And you need some outside help to balance things out. But you're totally right. The story you tell yourself will create the chemical imbalance, if you're always telling yourself a poor little me story, your body's going to react to it as if it's true, and it's going to release the chemicals and make you depressed. So 100%, it's not like, you have a chemical imbalance, you need drugs necessarily. You could be creating that chemical imbalance by the way you think and the story that you believe in and that you're telling yourself. But what I was going to say to you is, until you've experienced a perspective shift, like yourself or myself, or, either through psychedelics or whatever means, I don't think people can actually conceive of it. And I don't think people can actually believe that it's possible, because it's like, I mean, you can't, it's hard to describe, but it's like everything's the same, right? You have a perspective shift. After you have the shift, everything externally is the same, but everything is completely different. And until you experience that for yourself, it's hard to believe that it's possible, I think.
Yeah.
So like telling people like, all you got to do is change your perspective. It's like,
it's not that easy.
Damn. Yeah. If it's true,
is the truth. Yeah.
But how the fuck do you do that? Right. And so, yeah, that's the question to me is first timers, right? Like, how do you get them? How do you get them there? How do you help people realize that you can change your perspective, and that your perspective really informs your entire experience of life as it is? You don't react to things as they are. You react to your opinion of those things, right? And those opinions you can change. But how do you get people there, Gary? How do you help them feel the truth of that instead of just us intellectualizing it,
Yeah, that's a good one, man. I don't know the answer to that. That's a powerful question.
Well, for you, it was psychedelics and meditation, right? Combination of the two.
Yeah.
Do you remember like having a distinct shift in your perspective, and how would you describe that shift? Like before the shift and after the shift, how would you describe it to people?
Oh man, before and after? I mean, there was multiple shifts. I'll probably say like a few times, maybe like 3 or 4 times. And it was definitely due to magic mushrooms.
Yeah.
There was this one time I took magic mushrooms. Is somebody playing music?
Might be in the background of my house. There's
somebody's bumping in a car outside.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, this one time I took, it was a lot of magic mushrooms, dude. It was probably, I had a bag of, it was like 4 to 5 grams or 5, I don't know. It was between 4 and 6 grams of mushrooms that I had. And I, took Terrence McKenna's advice, and he said, if you don't feel it, eat more, because I was just eating the bag as you go, like chips. So I just kept eating. I'm like, I don't feel it. And then I stopped. There was one left, and I was like, all right, I'm done. I started to feel sick. The room was spinning. I went in, laid in my bed, and just went on this journey of the mind, man. It just felt like a rebirth, like a reuniting with source. Hard to explain. And it all started off with just a bunch of eyes just showing up and watching me. I've never hallucinated before that. And I was like, what is going on? And I just felt the immense love that is always present. Like there's always that love that is present that I tapped into. And I thought it was the most beautiful thing to be able to always tap into that flow of love, And that was probably one of the biggest shifts for me, to realize that love is forever there, that you can always tap into. And that is the way to live life. The path of the heart is that's what all the yogis talk about, man. That's what Jesus Christ talked about, man. This is what all the prophets say. It's the path of the heart, man. You just, to be able to tap into that universal flow of love. It's a powerful thing, man. That's kind of what we're talking about, to be able to tap into working with your heart a little bit more. And, like we talked about, forgiving people, understanding that we're all suffering, that we're all going through this thing together. We're all in this together. So to be able to approach other people with that mindset is kind of my path to the heart, to be able to realize that, you're going through your own stuff. I'm going through my stuff. Everybody's going through their own stuff. It's dukkha. It's the first noble truth. To be able to approach people in that manner really opens myself to be able to approach people of like and truly love them, like of the heart, to almost understand other people's viewpoints and other people's positions in life and perspectives in life, and to be able to um, almost forgive them and accept them for exactly who they are. And that was probably like the biggest shift, to realize that we're all going through it. We're all here. There's no, like I said before, man, there's no evil people. You know, we're all good people deep down. Like whatever story I want to say about Jim, because Jim, you know, screwed me
Jim.
over with $10. He owes me $10. Oh, he's an asshole. Whatever it is, man, you know, we're all going through it, bro. Jim probably didn't mean it. Maybe he forgot about the $10, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like
Maybe
that
he needs
idea.
it more than you do, you know?
Yeah. Jim, you can have the $10. And that's
Yeah, it's
kind of
not
how
worth it.
that's the whole perspective change for me. It's like a sense of understanding. Not that I want Jim to steal $10 from me, but it's almost like it gives me a sense of like, oh, I get it, man. Like whatever, you know,
Yeah.
as long as you're not there. I mean, I'm not saying there's not evil, man. I don't think I'm at the Jesus level, being able to forgive everybody, you know, forgive them, Father. They do not know. That's the idea that I like to keep in my head. But that's what I have to continue to remind myself to abide in, is that energy of, you know, recognizing another being and recognizing that they're going through it too, man. You
Yeah,
know, we're
dude.
all going through it.
Yeah,
Powerful.
dude. That is powerful. That's a huge shift. I mean, that's fucking massive. I'm only coming to that now, buddy. I'm only
Yeah.
coming to that now in the last year or so. I've finally set foot on the path of love, the path of the heart. And you know, like again, this whole thing, it's like if you have a spiritual awakening or some kind of experience like that, a mystical experience, that's just the fucking start, buddy. Like
Hmm.
I thought when I had my cubicle epiphany, part of me thought like, oh my God, this is it.
The
This
cubicle
is it.
epiphany.
Yeah. I thought like that's it. That this is the end of the road. I don't have to
Hmm.
worry about shit anymore. It's all over. Dude.
Hmm.
There's so much more to it. And then you just keep learning. It never stops. You just keep learning and keep growing and keep,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's refining what was already there. Like there's certain things that, yeah, I got it right off the start, but there was more to it and I needed to go deeper. And, you know, it's a good thing that I just carried on, because if I had just stopped right there and said, yep, I got it all. I got it all figured out, man, I would have missed out on the most important stuff.
Hmm.
And there's still stuff that I don't even know about yet. So,
Oh yeah.
you know, but yeah, the path of the heart and love, like leading with love. Like
Leading
if we
with
could
love.
all, you know what I mean? If you could just, whatever you're doing, go with love, like be motivated by love in your interactions with people, put love first, lead with love. Like
Hmm.
I try to remind myself of that stuff like every day, because it's like interactions with my kids, right? I can be annoyed that they made a mess or did some shit, or I can go in with love. It doesn't mean I'm not going to make them clean up the mess they made, but my demeanor and the way that I interact with them is going to be completely different if I lead with love.
Lead with love,
So
bro.
yeah, man,
That's
and
good.
it's hard though. It's a fucking steep path, right? I mean, and that's the narrow gate that Jesus talked about. It's hard sometimes to stay on that path, right? Because we get pulled into like, oh, it's not fair, or you know, whatever. Like, especially, you know, in this day and age, like there's so much stuff happening out there, and it's hard to walk the path of love, but it's
It's
more
hard.
important now than ever before, because
You're
there's so
right.
much hate and fear and division in the world.
Hmm. Sometimes when I'm interacting with somebody that I don't quite necessarily know, I like to just experiment and go, I love this person. And just see how that, and it works. Sometimes when I consciously say, you know what, he might be talking a little weird, you know, he might smell a little weird, whatever it is, you know what,
But
I
I
love
love
this
them.
person.
Yeah.
Try it out. You know, try it out
Yeah.
sometimes. Just say, I love, and it really does. Like they kind of, I notice when I consciously say that, which isn't often, it's hard to actually like become aware in that moment and say that you love that person. 'Cause you might not.
Right.
But to try and love the person and to say that automatically switches up like the energy. Like they kind of get that vibe that
Yeah.
when it's weird, man. Like you can just tell when somebody's being fake, like fake love and real love. Like when you actually just say it to yourself and just try to vibrate at that level of like, you know, I love you, man, and just sit with that and just take it in. Take the whatever interaction is going on with this person in for who they are in that moment. Try and love them as much as you can. It it's a different way to live life, and it's kind of opens up different doors. You know, it opens up people, and it makes life a little more interesting because you realize that that's what it's all about. Is we're here to be that being of love. I mean, might not be there 100%, you know, but I think it's a cool goal to try to attain, to be that loving person. Because what's the worst that's gonna happen? You can't outlove somebody, you know. So why not make that your goal? Like why not love everybody? Isn't that the greatest goal of all time? If you can say, all right, well, I'm here for 80 years. What did I try to do while I was here? I tried to love everybody. Isn't that a great goal to try to aspire to, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I agree, man. Not just everybody, try to love everything. You know what I mean? Like
all of it.
I find it interesting, like picky eaters, you know, like I have some in my family, obviously some of my kids, and it's like you're just making life less pleasurable by being a picky person. Try to enjoy everything. Like try to find a way to enjoy all of the good, like not everything. Obviously there's certain things you probably shouldn't enjoy because they're bad for you, but you know what I mean? Like try to be open to everything. Try to be
receptive.
Yeah, receptive. And then that way you'll know whether you actually like it or not, right? Because if you're just like, ew, it looks gross, or, you know, I don't like vegetables or whatever, it's like you could be missing out on your favorite food. You know what I mean? You don't even know it. So yeah, being open is, to me, kind of, I think, synonymous with love, right? You have to be open in order to tap into that place that you describe where you become love, where you experience love with no object, right?
Yeah.
Instead of like, I love this or that, it's like, no, I love, and
it's
I am
the end
love.
point. There's no conditions. It's just, I am love.
Yeah.
I think I heard Terrence McKenna say that one time. He's like, the pinnacle of this experience is just to resonate at love. Like there is no other explanation. If you can just love this experience for all its impurities, its imperfections, and all also on the other spectrum, its perfections as well, both the dark and the light, and just simply just love it for what this experience is. That's the goal. I think if there is a goal to be able to resonate at that frequency, for me, seems like that's a good, compass, a good moral compass to try to further my being into,
Totally. Yeah. There's no better direction. It's just, it just also happens to be extremely difficult at times, right?
That's the path, man. Yeah.
Yeah. It's narrow and it's steep on both sides, but
it's not easy.
Yeah. But the thing is, like we said earlier, you can always get back to it. It's okay if you fall. It's okay if you feel anger or resentment towards a person. Just got to scramble back up on that path and get back to walking it, because you're going to slip. It happens.
Yeah, it happens.
At least to everybody that I know. Yeah. There might be some like enlightened yogis out there who are just strong on that path and nothing can knock them down. But, sometimes I read news articles, or my friend tells me a story of like when she was a social worker, this fucking dad was the way that he would like punish his kid is he would like grab him by his ankles and hang him over a well that was on their property. My friend told me this story and I immediately reverted back to my homicidal. Like I was like, if I was around back then, I would have murdered that guy. I felt it. I felt the genuine desire to go and throw that guy down his own fucking well. And and it came out of me, man. And this is one of those moments where part of me was watching and going, Ollie, you're scaring your guests. You're getting too worked up about this. But it was like, nope, too late. The cat's out of the bag. Ollie's feeling his homicidal self again. And yeah, like I felt it in that moment when she told me that story. It was like a switch. And I was like, and I started talking about it too, because it was like, it had to come out. It was like that motherfucker, like, so for me, it's like, you're taking advantage of kids, or you're beating up on kids, or you're, pedophiles or whatever. Love everybody. Right. Fuck. I still got a ways to go, that? Gary. I still got a ways to go.
It's like any sane, rational person would be like, yeah, obviously we don't accept pedophiles.
Right.
We don't, or I mean, people that actually act on their pedophilia.
Sure.
We don't want them in our society. Let's just get rid of them, right? But
well, that's a part of it. But then again, they're human beings. And how did they end up this way? Because I know for myself, the mere thought of it is abhorrent. It's disgusting. It's repulsive. But for them, it's not. So something happened to them. Either they were born a certain way and there's something inherent to them in their biological programming, or they were molested as children. Like they're victims in themselves, either of biology or of terrible life circumstances. So yeah, we don't want them in our society. Yeah, we don't want our poor innocent children to be traumatized by these types of experiences. But at the same time, those people are the victims of trauma. They're the victims of fate. And yeah, so how do you balance those things, right?
That's the play we're on, man. That's this whole journey, figuring it out, in all of our differences. How do we balance that? How do we balance the greater good? And maybe sometimes people aren't for the greater good. But how do you also love everybody at the same time?
And is it a contradiction, right? I mean, I personally think you can love someone and still put them in prison. Right? It's like, sorry, this is the best place for you and for society is for you to be here. And, I think that, again, probably like 1% of all criminals fit that description. The others are victims that need help, that if they had the proper resources and if they had love from society and from individuals, they would be able to get out of prison and be completely perfectly good people. Like I volunteered here in Canada for the corrections, like the parole board, basically, right? And I was I got to meet a lot of people that were either in prison or just coming out of prison, and I didn't meet a single person that I couldn't relate to. Like they were all like, holy shit, I could be here. Like I did things as a teenager that could have landed me in jail. And then once you're in jail, it's like, well, now you're set up, right? Because you're going to meet criminals, you're going to become embroiled in that lifestyle. And then when you come out of prison, now, if you weren't a criminal before, you will be now because you've been indoctrinated into that culture, basically. But yeah, there's like, all of them were just people who were victims of circumstance, victims of traumatic upbringings, like their parents beat them, they had drug addict parent, you name it. None of them were just like, oh yeah, I had a perfectly good life and I decided to become a Jeffrey Dahmer, like those people are extremely rare. But again, those people exist and love everybody, right? So how do you reconcile that? Because if this person is going to go out and kill people or rape people or molest people, you got to love that person because they're the way they are for a reason, but you still got to take care of them and you put them away, or, at a certain point, like, is it cruel and unjust to keep a person caged for their life? Maybe it's more humane to just give them a quick, painless death, like I'm just spitballing, Gary. I'm not saying I'm like pro capital punishment, but maybe in some cases it's actually the humane and correct thing to do. Very rarely, I know
what you mean, man. This is the societal discernment that we have to make as this giant tribe, on Earth. We have to actually make these decisions. And I think, it's like, how do you love Hitler? What would you do to Hitler? Would you kill him, or would you just, he's being him. He's you got to love him for who he is. Or would you just, like, if you had the opportunity, would you shoot Hitler in the head, or would you let him go and love him for who he is? It's like, no, I'd shoot him in the head.
Yeah. But can you do it out of love?
I'm doing it out of love. I would kill Hitler.
Yeah.
Because he's obviously so gone that the only way that he's going to be able to find some kind of peace is his own death. And he's also not going to cause the other deaths of millions and millions of people around the globe.
I know, right? So, but I think for me, when I do these types of thought experiments, it's like, that's like 0.001% of the time. Yeah. That's that's the justifiable or the correct path, violence, right? Like I have this conversation with my wife all the time. I tell her, I'm like, sometimes that's the only way. Again, very rarely, very, very, very rarely. Like I can't even calculate it because it's so rare. But like you just described a perfect situation there, right? Not only is it out of love for all the people that he could have taken out, it's actually you could do it out of love for him because he's suffering too. He's a deranged person. And, he's can you imagine what would have to happen to you and the amount of methamphetamine you'd have to be on, which he was, right? He was fucking junkie.
Yep.
For you to come to the conclusion that an entire group of people need to be exterminated, and then to carry that shit out with methodical precision, like, obviously you're fucked. You are totally deranged. You're not a happy person. You're not having a meaningful, well, I guess it's meaningful in a bad way, but you know, you're not having like a good experience of life. Like, put him out of his fucking misery.
That's what happens
Poor
when you
guy.
don't get accepted to art school, man.
Oh
guy.
man, can
Put
you
him out of his
imagine?
misery.
That's all. If you didn't get accepted into art school, sorry, we're going to put you out of your misery. No, that's not what I'm saying. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure it was more than just being rejected from art school. It seems like he must have gone through a gauntlet of shit. But yeah, I've personally never tried it. I mean, I don't even think I know anybody who has. What's that?
They give it to kids. They give amphetamines to kids. It's isn't it Adderall? Is it Adderall or is it?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, something like that. It's either
amphetamine.
Yeah, I thought Adderall was like basically like legal cocaine, but it could be methamphetamine. Same thing, right? They're uppers.
Let me see. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I mean, it's the same kind of effect.
That's wild
Adderall,
that
cocaine.
they give that to children. Like, holy
Adderall
fuck.
is an amphetamine.
Wow.
And dextroamphetamine, whatever that is. But it's a amphetamine. The same thing as methamphetamine.
It's in the same family.
Damn, son. And it does the same thing to your brain. Gotta just put in the right drugs, man. They're giving amphetamines to kids for their homework. Yeah, all right, man. But don't touch the weed. Don't touch that marijuana.
That's starting to change now, thankfully. I think
it is. Yo, I just saw a news story the other day. It's like, watch out for the marijuana gummies in your Halloween candy. It's like, nobody's giving that to kids, man. They're not giving away their weed gummies to kids. Like,
why would you want to do that? Yeah, that's so stupid. That's like the old like urban legend of like razor blades in the apples or whatever. Yeah. Like it never happened. It came from like the real story was I think it did happen, but it was like the kid's own stepdad that did it to him. And then that story went, yeah. And this was like before social media and the internet. So it was like, it became this kind of like urban legend that like, be careful, some people do this. And it was like, no, one guy one time did it to his own fucking kid, his stepkid. Right. So it's like,
that's all it takes is one person to write a story in a very, and it could be well written, but it also can be very sensationalized. And it's easy to coerce people into ideas like that if you just know how to write the right stuff, to, put your words in the right sensationalistic way that either makes somebody go, or
fear.
Like, fear. Yeah. It's very, be controlled through fear. It's that like aspect of, it's like a shock. And, you could say the news story could be, man, throws razor blades, what was it, in apples or candy?
Yeah, something like that. Hiding it in an apple or something.
Yeah, man throws razor blade in apple, and kids gets gruesome injury, but you don't hear in the story that it was just a stepdad because he's just a weirdo. It wasn't some random guy or something. But what I'm trying to say is all it takes is one story, and there's a lot of stories on the internet. Getting back to the idea of stories, there's a lot of stories that you can go down and dive into the rabbit holes of these stories and then enter echo chambers of these stories, and you think it's actually true because you've seen this story reiterated to you in your pocket on your phone day by day, every single day, right? We all have this certain narrative of how we think the world works and how we think it runs because of these people that literally write editorial pieces and stories and blog posts, whatever it is. Anything online is just another story that we 100%. Tell ourselves on how the world is. You just got to check yourself, man. You know, don't get sucked into those stories and you'll be all right. You can take the gummies, If anything, I would want gummies, man.
Well, yeah, but I feel like a kid would have a bad experience on that. Like you can have, I know lots of people, myself included, who have had.
Be all right. The kid be all right.
I know. I'm sure they would be in the long run, but it would be a tense evening for that kid, I bet, especially depending on the potency. No, it'd be like, oh my God, Halloween it's real this year. There's ghosts.
That's interesting. I wonder how kids react on marijuana because they probably don't know any better. Like that's probably, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Definitely got to be powerful.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I keep that shit away from my kids, and
Yeah.
keep it away from them. But I also educate them on it so that there's no like chance that they're gonna like, oh, candy, like because who knows, right? They can look through the house and they can find shit. So, like, I'm very transparent with my kids especially because it's legal here now in Canada. So it's like, well, you know how Daddy likes to have a glass of wine sometimes. He also likes to take a toke. There's no difference, and it's like sometimes I come and put you to bed. And I've already had a toke, and you don't even have a fucking clue. I'm just more huggy, like I'm just more affectionate or whatever. Like I have more patience for your crazy stories, So yeah, like I definitely feel like transparency and being truthful with my kids is the way to approach that topic. But
yeah, for sure.
And then that way it's like, if, once it gets around and they're in like high school or middle school in my one daughter's case, and she gets exposed to it, she's like, that's what my dad's into. That's lame. She's not going to have any interest. She's going to be like, yeah, sometimes he smells funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So,
I don't know.
Yeah. But that's crazy to me that,
they give
people
meth.
they have no issues prescribing that to their kids and feeding it to their kids, methamphetamine essentially, but
don't touch the weed. I think kids would be good on CBD. Like if you gave them like a little, like some CBD tincture, there's probably a lot of kids that could benefit from just a little bit of CBD tincture. If we're talking about being able to focus and just, have some kind of attention span and being able to quiet the mind a little bit, because kids aren't going to be able to learn how to meditate, when they're 5 years old, most likely. So if you can just give them some CBD tincture, CBG, CBN for sleeping. There's all these different cannabinoids of the cannabis plant that we're not utilizing. And
non-psychoactive.
Non-psychoactive, but still have this have a very calming effect for the mind and body without kind of going into your mind, psychedelic wise.
Yeah, you don't necessarily want to do that when you're a little kid, but they've used CBD with kids, haven't they? Like they were using it for kids that had like certain types of seizures, and they were like treating the seizures with it. So it's not like it's been done before, and it's not obviously harmful to the kids. Much better than taking like 25 different prescription medication for these seizures. Like I can't remember exactly what the story was. I think it was on CNN, but this one little girl was like taking all of these fucking drugs. And then it was like, oh, just weed. Just weed replaced all of those drugs and did better than those drugs because those drugs weren't even working properly for her,
Yeah, it's a medicine, man. I want to actually bring up a video of that.
Dude, hit that.
I mean, we've probably all seen this if we all know marijuana, but it's a guy with Parkinson's and they give him CBD or some kind of Rick Simpson oil, maybe, or something like that. I don't know.
There's a few of those out there. There's one guy who had like a lot of shakes and couldn't speak properly, and then like a couple bong hits later, he was like, "Well, this is how I am now." It's like I'm
all right, so we're gonna play
articulate.
This one. Yeah, there's some disorders where it's like a miracle. If I had, hold on, let me just share this. If I had Parkinson's or if I had seizures, I would think cannabis was the greatest thing of all time. Imagine it just being all you got to do is just you swallow, you take a puff, or you take some a gummy or a tincture, and the worst thing in your life that has ever happened, you having a seizure or you not being able to stop shaking, it automatically just makes it stop. I would think cannabis is the greatest thing of all time.
Yeah,
and it is. It's a medicine.
Hi, Larry. How are you? Come in. Come in. Good to see you. How you feeling? It's been a bit of a rough week, really.
It's about to get better, brother.
On your tongue and rub it in your cheek. Don't do too much. You're going to be asleep all afternoon. You know what you should do? No. Don't try to communicate. Just relax. See what happens.
We know from animal experiments that the endogenous cannabinoid system is very important in regulating motor activity, that very type of activity that is impaired in Parkinson's disease. From animal experiments, we also know that boosting
Damn.
certain branches of the endocannabinoid system
2
is
minutes.
helpful in relieving symptoms of Parkinson's. Finally, from anecdotal information, we know that certain patients who smoke marijuana experience relief of their symptoms.
I think you're calmed down.
So quickly.
Isn't that amazing?
Holy fuck.
He used just a single drop, and his hands afterwards were rock steady, and the dyskinesia left.
It was
Wow.
It works most of the time.
Exactly.
Wow.
What more do you want? That right there, ladies and gentlemen.
Did you guys get lunch?
Are you hungry now?
I am. Actually, I've
A person like me could really use marijuana. It makes me pretty angry that I can't get it in my home state.
The number one frustration that I have is knowing that there is this untapped potential that comes from what marijuana is teaching us
Marijuana.
to generate new medicines, and being stuck because of financial issues or political issues. That is extremely frustrating.
We now know that medical marijuana controls dyskinesia, and yet it's not available to us.
Wow.
It's not available. Well, it might be from when this video was filmed, but it's
Wow.
as we're speaking, as we're making this, man, that medicine is a Schedule 1 substance. I'm pretty sure it's still, either way, I don't know what the scheduling is. It's still a very illegal substance in the United States of America, federally.
Yeah. Wow.
It's
That's
crazy,
still
man.
crazy to me. Yeah, I mean it was crazy. It's been crazy for a while. It's not like this is a new thing, but that it's still illegal after all this time and after
It's
all
still-
this
it's-
research
bro,
that's coming out, you know?
Yeah, we and you live in places where it's legal, so it's kind of like don't think twice about it. There's still
Yeah.
places in the same country that I live in that you can go to jail for a long time if you get caught with some weed, man. And it's a travesty, man, because it makes it so. I mean, we're obviously getting past it. You know, we're past the. You know, it's going to become legal eventually, but we're still. It's a very unique time right now that we're living in, where it's like a transitionary period between it being, you know, the devil's lettuce and now coming into being incorporated as a legit medicine into our society. And we're still at the in-between stages, you know? And I think it might be a little deliberate because it might be a little too good of a medicine in some aspects. And
100%.
some people, well, yeah, some people can't make that money that they were getting from, you know, all these other drugs that were probably given to this guy for seizures in the past. You know, maybe they worked, but I mean, how much more do you need than just some of that oil? And he was chilling. He was just hungry.
That was
you know?
wild. Yeah, I've seen all kinds of videos like that before, but it never ceases to amaze me. I mean, that one was like, Jesus.
Like 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, and he was good.
Yeah, he went from being like tied up like in a knot to like completely relaxed. You can just see it happen. It's so crazy. But
Yeah.
yeah, and by the way, I like what we did this time with videos. Like
Mhm.
I like doing it that way. So we should definitely stick to that mode. And
Yeah.
and like in between these episodes, you know, we can gather videos that we want to maybe throw up on the screen or whatever. But
I agree,
yeah,
dude. I think it's a good formula.
yeah, agreed. Agreed, man. So what do you got planned for the rest of the day?
It's a good question. I'm probably gonna eat after this. I think you know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go get some sushi, and
Nice.
then I don't know, just meditate. Maybe go for a walk, and we'll see. I don't know. I like to meditate after these sometimes to just kind of just let it soak in the energy that we cultivated for ourselves. This is like a yoga. I see this as just like a yoga of the mind session. And sometimes I like to just go, shavasana, like the last pose in yoga. Sometimes I like to take my own shavasana after these interactions and just soak it in, digest it, meditate on it, and just feel how it feels to have these things. Because I like to notice the before and afters of when I do my yoga practices, and I like to do the before and afters of these conversations too. And it's like it's a thing to be able to witness that literal change of I don't know, everything. I just feel good from doing this, you know, like it feels like I'm exercising some kind of mental muscle. And I just like to sit with that for a little bit and integrate that. And yeah, I don't
Nice.
know. So yeah, probably go for a walk, get some sun. What about you?
Yeah, I've got some meditation to do today for sure, and we got kid's birthday party tonight, so we'll have some
Nice.
people over, and the downstairs is for the boys. We'll watch some UFC, some mixed martial arts, but yeah, and it's sober October for me, so I'm trying to not trying to, I'm abstaining from alcohol. And instead of just abstaining from alcohol this month, my wife and I decided we're going to meditate every day. That's one of our goals. So yeah, get that over with after this. I think that's a great idea to do it after this conversation and just kind of reflect on what we discussed and the whole experience.
And see if you can abstain from marijuana, alcohol, and sex. Go 1 month without any of that, like nothing. You go into monk mode and see how you feel. That's tough.
No thanks, I'm good. Cannabis is medicine, so it doesn't count. And sex is like, well, come on, brother. That's the essence of life, you know. It's a sacred experience, man. It's the unitive experience. It's as close as you can get to physical union with another human being, you know, as anything. So, you know, my wife and I are in spiritual and mental union all the time, but yeah, I'm not going to miss out on hump day and hump day and cum day, as we call them.
Damn. Yeah, man. I think there's something special about being able to dive into the sexual experience, because a lot of belief systems like to shut that off of the human experience, but I think they're kind of missing the point a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't mean you have to be having sex every day or, you know, masturbating every day, but just being able to have a relationship with your own sexual drive and the energy that it produces for your being, and to be able to not be a slave to it also, I think
that's
powerful.
the key. That's the key for sure. And I think that's what the whole like essence of the like no fap movement, right? Where it's like, for a lot of guys, it's like a daily occurrence. You know, I remember as a young man spanking it often. You know, it was, again, very, very common. Like, but as you start to get older, it's like, dude, like, okay, you're not a boy anymore. And like, especially if you're, in my case, married with a willing sexual partner who you're attracted to, like I'm pretty blessed, I have to admit, because like my wife and I have been together for a long time and we're still very much into each other, to the point where our kids are like, get a room, like you guys stop. You know, like we hug, we kiss, we're affectionate, and we still like to do it. So for me, it's like masturbation has no place, because why would I waste my sexual energies in a Kleenex when I have this beautiful life partner that also does it for me, you know, and I do it for her. So it's like, that becomes a sacred thing in itself for us. But again, I'm not here to judge. Like, if, you know, I think with the spiritual path, I think if you're like a promiscuous person and you're having sex, like that's meaningless, that to me, I feel like it's probably not conducive to the spiritual path. But again, maybe that's a person's yoga, you know, maybe they're like, yes, this is when I feel, you know, tapped in, is when I'm going around and sleeping with all these people. Like, I'm not here to judge that, but it seems like that would be a hindrance in a way. And same with like, you know, jerking it every day. It's like, you got to have some discipline and be able to be in charge of yourself a bit more, you know?
Amen. Be in charge of yourself.
A little bit, right? Like like you have an animal self, like, and that those sexual desires are very much rooted in the animal, right? I mean, that's procreation. It's very basic instinctual stuff. It's not to say that you should suppress it or that it's wrong, but it's like, does the animal run the show or do you run the show? Right. And sometimes you got to say, no, stop humping the leg, animal. Like, it's not time, you know? And it's like, you're married, like focus on the shit. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, because the animal just doesn't think that way. It just fucking is hungry and it wants it and it wants it and it wants it. It never stops. Right. So
it's the animal mind that always wants, man. Be able to tackle that, be able to control the animal.
Yeah, tame it a little bit, right? Make it your pet or something, so it's not running the show.
That's what it is, man.
Yeah.
That's the whole process. That's the path.
Yeah, well, we are animals, right? So it's It's like the analogy of the rider and the elephant, right? Like the rider, your control over that elephant is very tenuous. Like that elephant can do whatever it wants. It's huge. It's got way more strength than you. And you're just like trying to to steer it in the right direction. But
yeah. Damn.
Anywho.
Yeah. On that note, I think we can probably wrap this thing up. It's a good talk, man.
Yeah, always, brother. Always. I love chatting with you, man. I look forward to it every month. So, and with the videos and stuff now, I think that's even better. I love that format.
Yeah, we got a good formula going. I like this talk. I can see us doing this for a long time. Just having some fun, man.
I'm glad you feel that way. Yeah. And somehow we don't ever run out of things to talk about. It's very strange. Like even now, it's like if I didn't have to go and hang out with my kids and stuff, I'm sure we could just keep shooting the shit. So
yeah, man. We're in sync. And hopefully the audience was in sync if anybody listened this long. But yeah.
Well, you seem to be getting good, like 40, 50 views and stuff like on these types of videos. And the fact that 50 people are sitting through this entire conversation is like, first of all, thank you, because it's like awesome. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's obviously interesting to some people.
Yeah. To me, it's interesting to me. That's all that matters.
Same here. Yeah. It's at least 2 people for sure.
All right, man. Well, have a good rest of your day, and hope all is well until we speak again.
Yeah, you as well, brother. Stay in touch, and we'll talk next month.
Namaste. Peace out.
Peace.